Hello there everyone, and welcome back to Void Dwarf Studios. And today we are into the upper echelons of Orc society. We are going to be talking about Orc Nobz, some of the biggest, baddest, most grumpy, cantankerous, angry specimens of the greenskin race. And for good reason. Every orc when they fight gets bigger and bigger. AKA, the more they fight, the bigger they get. This is all thanks to the wonderful biochemistry of their wonderful fungus-like bodies. Essentially, they will continuously keep getting bigger until something actually kills them or, well, hurts them enough that they stop growing. Typically speaking, for an orc, this is their war boss punching them over the head, which convinces them to not fight their war boss. Nobz, or nobles, I suppose you could call them, but orcs can't be bothered with that kind of language, so it's Nobz. N-O-B-Z, because it sounds more orky. Anyway, it's fairly straightforward how you become an Orc Nob. You get big enough that you can bully the Gretchen and other orc boys into doing what you want. And these Nobs tend to form a, well, in case you haven't guessed it, a noble caste. Basically, the only thing above a Nob is the war boss and the specialists such as the mech, Pain Boy, the Warg Banner Bearer, that kind of thing. It is these guys' job to get stuck into some of the heaviest fighting that the orcs can get their hands on. And in order to do that, they tend to, well, confiscate, is how they like to think of it, any and all of the best equipment and armour that they can get their hands on. For this reason, Orc Nobs tend to wear slightly better armour than Orc Boys. That's not necessarily saying much, considering it tends to be large slabs of plate and metal. But, you know, they do get their hands on some pretty funky weapons, and the Orc Mech is more than happy to provide them with any cool gubbins and bits and bobs, so long as they have the teeth to pay for it, of course. In this way, you have, technically speaking, 3 different units in your Orc army, all of which are composed of the Orc Nob class. You have your standard Orc Nob unit, which tends to be 5 to 10 models. Of course, you can have more than that because you can have a Gretchen with each one of these Nobs who acts as an ammo run. Basically, these guns fire so many bullets that the Gretchen drag ammo cases and packs of bullets around with them, and they help reload the gun faster. In-game, this gives you a reroll, which is pretty damn handy. I am particularly fond of these, although I'm not gonna lie, it took me forever to paint the damn models because there are so many bits on them that it just took me a while. But like I said, in any case, these units are best, I would say, in an orc truck, where you can have them wandering around, shooting up the place and just having a general good time. And these orcs have a wonderful variety of weapons. For close combat purposes, these tend to be big choppers, kill saws, power claws, power stabbers, or of course you could just give them the good old-fashioned slugger and chopper if you're feeling cheap. However, you can, in addition to a fantastic close combat weapon, also give them a combi weapon. These are basically big shooters with the addition of a rocket launcher or a scorcher, basically a flamethrower and rocket launcher. I am very, very fond of having units of these where you have at least 2 scorchers, because then you're wandering around in a truck with these 2 flamethrowers spurting out either side, and it just creates all kinds of mess. And to cap it off, Orc Nobs are tough enough that they can survive quite a lot of heavy punishment. Because of their fantastic toughness of 4 and their strength of 5, it means that they can effectively punch and survive an awful lot of punishment. And you know, those 2 wounds help as well. But it gets better. Orc Nobs, because of their status, get to, well, I would say get the privilege, but I would more accurately say they get to risk their lives with an Orc Mech who gives them a cyborg body, basically covering up their bones with, well, metal plates and various other gadgets that the mech may feel like installing at the time. This can range from usefulness to a cyborg eye that allows them to see in the dark, to a coffee machine, because the orc just felt like it at the time. But this cyborg body basically means that they get a 6 that on the roll of a d6, if you roll a 6, you get to ignore any wound you might have taken. So, you know, that's a pretty handy upgrade. And then, of course, there is keep in order, which is what the Nobz are all about. They do love bullying everything and anything below them. What this essentially means is that any orc unit within 3 inches of these guys does not flee when they roll a 6. Of course, I am currently talking about orcs in the previous edition, so we shall have to see how DW do them in our latest edition. But we don't know when the Orc Codex is coming out, so we're going to have to guess a little bit. But you may not want orcs in trucks. That's fine, I completely understand that. But you also don't want them wandering around on foot, because that's boring and slow. You want them on bikes. Yes, bikes. Bikes are an option. Take them on bikes, and they have that extra beautiful wound for a maximum of 3 wounds apiece. Fan-frickin-tastic. You get to move 14 inches, which is amazing. You obviously get the Daka guns, but you can get all the normal replacements you have for a Orc Nobz unit. So basically, it's an Orc Nobz unit with the addition of speed, which, you know, depending on how you want to do this, is a fantastic way to play them. There are 2 final ways that Orc Nobz facilitate their role within an Orc army. One of these is the Warg Banner Bearer. Now, Orcs aren't typically fond of standing back with a banner and waving it around, so these Orc Nobz with the Warg Banner are at the front of the Warg. It's sort of the Orc way of figuring out which direction you charge. You basically follow the knob with the banner, and well, that's probably where the best fighting is going to be, so get stuck in. And the Orc Nobz with the banner is usually a pretty brutal specimen of the species, and is more than happy to bludgeon anything that attempts to take the banner away from him. And at least in the previous edition, the Warg Banner gave you a +1 to your hit rolls. Meaning that, for example, your Nobz, who were hitting on 3s, now hit on 2s. Which is, good gracious God, all kinds of unpleasantness, especially when you consider how many attacks. Stick this guy near some Orc boys, especially 2 big juicy units with choppers and sluggers. Oh boy, that's gonna get real messy, even for Astartes. And the final way you can have Orc Nobz in your army is the Megan. I would say this is the Orc answer to Terminator armor, but that's incredibly generous, to say the absolute least. Mega armor is crude but functional, I think is the politest way to put this. Mega armor is virtually impervious to most forms of attack. It gives the Orc a 2+ save, similar to the Terminators from the Adeptus Astartes, but the similarities kind of end there, because whilst the Terminator armor is a very, very sophisticated form of hardware, the Mega armor it's more like wearing a suit of armor that's weighing several tons, because the metal is several inches thick, on top of the Orc's body, with a rough frame around the armor so that the Orc, doesn't get crushed under the weight. And with maybe some power bundles to essentially help move the arms and legs, the Orc is basically moving this suit of armor with its own strength. This is pretty much why Nobz are the only Orcs that wear Mega armor, because the stuff is so freaking heavy that the average Orc boy just wouldn't be able to even move in this stuff. And frankly, it's why Mega Nobz tend to enjoy being carried around in trucks or gargants or stompers or anything, rather than walk along on the battlefield, because they're so slow. However, because of this incredibly heavy suit of armor, and the access to power supplies that the Orc mech usually can install in these things, they have access to all kinds of fun weapons, such as the kill saws, various scorchers, rocket launchers, big shooters, power claws, kill saws, you name it. These suits of armor can be attached with almost any adaptation. And really, besides Orc Nobz, the only other Orc that will ever wear a suit of Mega armor will be a mech, typically with some kind of fancy invention that he is wanting to test out at the time, or the war boss Although GW, for some really weird reason, haven't released a model, haven't released rules in this edition for a war boss in Mega Armor. I really don't understand why, it really makes no sense, but that's how they're doing it right now. And how do you use Nobz in a game? Well, frankly, they are some of your best options for up and close violence, and, well, yeah. Although, saying that, Orcs do have a wonderful array of guns with their custom shooters, which means they do have a certain degree of versatility, but I would personally suggest that if you're going to give Nobz guns, bearing in mind they hit on a 5+, just give them Scorchers. Just seriously, just give them Scorchers, because at the very least, regardless of whether they're in Mega Armor, on bikes, or on foot, or in a truck, Scorchers are just a fantastic option, because it's a heavy flamethrower, basically, and it allows the Orcs to actually hit things. If you throw enough spaghetti at the wall, some of it's bound to stick eventually. It's always handy to have guaranteed hits. And to be fair, if you're playing Orcs, standing back and shooting is, whilst an option, it's certainly not the one I would personally prefer. But then again, I have always been a fan of getting up close and personal and, well, getting models to punch each other in the face, because it just feels far more orky to me. Anywho, I hope you've enjoyed this little episode about Orc Mega Nobz and all kinds of knobs, and this video is going to get taken down, isn't it? It's not my fault, Gov. It's not my fault. Anyway, I hope you've all enjoyed this video. I will be trying to release another one very soon, because I have had to go to work a lot recently, because, you know, I gotta eat, which has meant that I haven't been able to make as many videos as I wanted to this week. But anyway, I hope you've all had a fantastic week wherever you are. Have a happy Halloween, and most importantly, take care, everyone.